This video is brought to you by the WakeTech ILC and is closed captioned. Today, we'll be discussing how to write an effective conclusion and what are the three most important parts to concluding your essay. Firstly, you may already know the first two parts, as they are the main ideas that are taught in high schools and earlier for conclusions. These two parts are restating the thesis and summarizing the main points of the paper. While doing this, avoid introducing new topics. This is because you don't want the reader to be left wondering about these topics you brought up at the end and what they mean for your paper. You're concluding your discussion at this point and don't want new information to block what you've already discussed. Now, while these two parts are important, they don't include the final part, the part that brings all of your points together and tells the reader the implications of what you've been arguing. This third part of a conclusion is actually simple. Tell the implications by answering the question, so what? This is the most important part of your conclusion, as you are telling the reader why what you just wrote is important, and you leave them with a strong impression. Imagine that the reader reads the introduction and the body paragraphs only. The big question they'll have on their mind is, so what? Why is this important? By answering this question, you are telling the reader why it's important and what your paper means for the topic that you discussed. It's like watching the conclusion of your favorite movie. The film doesn't just summarize everything that has happened, but it shows you where everything ends up and hints towards the possible future for the characters. It leaves an impression with you because you begin to wonder about those characters and where they may end up later. It's the same for your paper. You want to end in a way that makes the reader think after they've finished reading your paper. It could create a new conversation with them with someone they meet, or it could gnaw at their mind to think about the implications of what they've read. You can think of your conclusion in the same way as your introduction, just done in the opposite format this time. You start and begin your introduction very broad, and then get into the specifics with your introduction. So here, you're doing the exact opposite. You start with your specific thesis by restating it, and then you begin to broaden the conversation by summarizing everything that you've talked about, and then finally leaving off with a hook that makes the reader think after they finished reading your paper. Perhaps you can return to your hook that you had at the beginning to bring the paper full circle. To summarize, your conclusion needs three parts: restating the thesis, summarizing the main points of your paper, and telling the implications by answering the question, so what? Get the readers thinking in the end, and maybe they'll tell someone else about the essay that they just read. Your arguments and points here can begin to expand beyond just the reading of one individual, and others will be able to look to the argument and find themselves either disagreeing or agreeing with those same points. Thanks for watching. Be sure to follow us on OrgSync and like us on Facebook.